This is a behind-the-scenes look at the original custom soundtrack for Sheep Tag 2. Sheep Tag 2 is a competitive multiplayer game that pits a team of powerful and merciless wolves versus vulnerable but agile sheep. The rules are simple. The wolves must kill every last sheep before the timer runs out. But if even one single sheep is left standing, the sheep team wins. This dance between predator and prey is a complex experience for the player, both emotionally and technically. At its best, Sheep Tag 2 is an exhilarating game, but no game is without design challenges. Wolves may feel the stakes are lower, as they cannot be killed but only inconvenienced. Sheep may become fatigued with hundreds of actions per minute, and rounds could potentially blur together over longer play sessions, as the game is arcade-like in spirit, opting for deep but simple gameplay. These three design challenges are inherent to the core gameplay that gives Sheep Tag its magic, but they are solvable, just not by changing the gameplay. They're solved because the Sheep Tag 2 soundtrack was not designed to simply sound nice. It was designed to serve the gameplay. Let's begin with the first design challenge. The sheep die in just one hit, so as a sheep, you play on the edge of your seat. As a wolf, however, you're effectively invincible, and there's never a sense of danger. However, if the wolves can lose the game, then surely there is danger for the wolf player to experience. How does the wolf team lose? By running out of time. And thus, the soundtrack provides the sense of danger. Listen to the very beginning of the Sheep Tag 2 soundtrack. The grandfather clock, slow and calm, draws our attention to the gameplay mechanic of the timer. At this point, the sheep are scattering from the center of the map to go hide from the big bad wolves that are about to spawn. Listen to what happens the moment the wolves spawn. The haunting melody evokes the feeling of a dark fairy tale. The fog of war covers the map, and the wolves begin their prowl for the hiding sheep. This theme of the ticking clock will carry through the entire soundtrack, meant to give depth to the timer as a gameplay mechanic. Throughout the game, the ticking is present, and the wolves will always be reminded of their danger, the running out of the clock. As the game continues, and the time remaining will wane, we and the wolves will have long since forgotten the peaceful grandfather clock as they listen to an urgency-inducing stopwatch. But the transformation from the calm grandfather clock to the ticking stopwatch is not sudden. After we transition from the opening into the middle game, the grandfather clock fades out and the sound of a wall clock enters. Now we turn our attention to the next design challenge. Playing as a sheep requires an extremely high number of actions per minute, and each action is critical to the player's survival. A less sensitive composer might opt to match the player's experience in the music, opting for dense, high-energy music. But the Sheep Tag 2 soundtrack is meant to serve the gameplay. And in this instance, the best creative choice is to actually create calming music that still enhances the world but helps ease the player's mind. We still have a long way to go before the climactic conclusion. So we use this opportunity, far before the end of the game, to give depth to the world. The fantasy of sheep grazing on an open field. Listen to the aesthetic of the music capture this. And listen to it interplay with the clock motif, keeping the wolves reminded of the danger they face. Next, we have a chance to enhance the fantasy element of the gameplay once more with the day-night system. The ticking of a wall clock is replaced with the ticking of an alarm clock on a bedside table. Listen to how the aesthetic changes from open grazing in the fields during daytime to a midnight grove hidden in a forest. When the game reaches its halfway mark, we have another opportunity to solve a design challenge. One of the beautiful successes of Sheep Tag 2 is the deep but simple gameplay. The downside of this style is that rounds of the game could begin to feel similar to each other. The solution is for the soundtrack to highlight the subtle differences between rounds to add variety. At the halfway mark, the soundtrack splits into two branching paths. One track will play if the sheep team is currently in the lead, outplaying their wolf opponents, and the other will play if the wolves are in the lead, having already eaten half of the sheep players. Listen first to the violent music that plays if the wolves are in the lead, cheering them on to further indulge their bloodlust. In stark contrast, listen to what happens to cheer on the sheep who are making fools of their wolf predators if the sheep are in the lead. After the halfway mark passes, the soundtrack highlights again the second and final transition from day to night. It's more serious and less fun as we're approaching the climactic end of the round. The grandfather clock has long been forgotten, and the ticking stopwatch fills the air. In order to add even more variety, the soundtrack branches paths one more time, featuring 4 different levels of intensity for the ending music. If all the sheep are still alive, the music will keep the stopwatch quiet, and heavenly music will provide a sense of peace and victory for a battle which ended without death. But as sheep die, and the wolves inch closer to a victory of total bloodshed, the soundtrack changes instruments, emphasizes the stopwatch more prominently, and plays the same tune, but with a dramatically different aesthetic. Listen now to the other end of the spectrum of the finale, the final battle of survival, as all the wolf players encircle just one remaining sheep, fighting for their survival and the victory of their onlooking team. A gong punctuates the end of the timer, and today the sheep are crowned the victorious champions. As the players remake the game for another round, the soundtrack will not quite be the same, because the soundtrack is designed around roles rather than individual tunes. Fresh tracks can be swapped in easily. An alternate overture can use the grandfather clock to create an entirely new song. More day and night themes can be swapped in, and the possibilities for variations continue throughout the entire soundtrack, giving the developer opportunities to breathe new life into the game in the future without changing the integral role of the soundtrack. And by catering to the developer's needs, the soundtrack does far more than just sound pretty in the background. It serves the gameplay. Thank you for checking out this behind-the-scenes look at Sheep Tag 2. We encourage you to join the Discord and play this wonderful game for yourself. Take care.